Hey kids, we're back with our reading of Little Pilgrims Progress, and we're going to be starting in chapter 16 today. So we're making really good progress through this. Uh, chapter 16 is New Friends. Little Christian waited by the side of Watchful in the porch of the palace Beautiful, and presently a lady came out to speak to him. Her name was Discretion, and when Christian looked up at her, he thought her face was the sweetest he had ever seen. Why did you call me? She asked. Then, seeing little Christian, she put her hand out and laid gently on his shoulder. She is like my mother's picture, he thought. I am sure I shall love her. Watchful answered his mistress, saying, This boy is journeying to the celestial city, and it is too late for him to walk any further tonight. So he will be glad to stay here if you are willing to take him in. Then Discretion asked Christian many questions. She wished to know from what city he had come and why he had left home, and she also asked him who had directed him in the way of the king. She made him tell her of all that had happened on the way of his journey. And what is your name? She said at last. Christian, he replied. I shall be so glad if I may stay here until the morning. Yes, you may stay, answered Discretion, smiling at the boy's anxious face. Wait, and I will call my daughters. She went back into the house and brought out 3 girls. 2 of them were older than Christian. Their names were Piety and Prudence. Charity, the youngest, was just about his own age. This is one of the king's little pilgrims, said Discretion. I think we can make room for him at the palace, can we not? Oh, yes, said Prudence, and Charity ran up behind him and put her hand on him, as Christina used to do when he was home. Come in, says Piety. We are all very glad to see you. A number of people were in the hall at the palace, and they all looked kindly at little Christian. And as he came in, Mother, take care of them, said Charity. We girls look after little pilgrims. It's not quite time for supper, said Discretion, but no doubt Christian is tired. Take him to your own room and let him rest. The 3 girls led the way to a comfortable room where a lamp was burning and casting its cheerful light upon the walls that were covered with beautiful pictures. Here Christian sat down while Piety and Prudence took up the needlework they had laid aside when their mother called for them. Charity brought a footstool and seated herself near Christian. She was a kind-hearted little girl and loved to spend her time in waiting upon her mother's guests and in doing all she could to make them happy. If you are not too tired to talk, said Piety, we should like to hear about your journey. What made you leave your home? It was frightening, answered Christian, for the strangers came into our city and used to tell us that it would be destroyed. And how was it that you thought of coming into the way of the king? I had read of the celestial city in my own book. And one day Evangelist met me and he showed me the way to the wicket gate. Did you stay in the house of the interpreter? Oh, yes, replied Christian. He was very kind to me. I saw the picture of the good shepherd and I watched the soldier who fought his way into the palace. I wish I could have stayed there a long time. And what have you done today? First, I passed the cross, and there I lost my burden. And the Shining One brought me these new white clothes, and they gave me a message from the king, and one of them set this mark upon my forehead. After that, I found 3 boys sleeping by the wayside. I tried to wake them, but they would not listen to me. Then Formalist and Hypocrisy climbed over the wall, but I think they chose the wrong path when they came to the hill, for I did not see them again. The hill is hard to climb, said Piety. Yes, I thought I should never get up, and then, when I saw the lions, I very nearly turned back again. But the keeper called to me and told me they were chained. Then Prudence began to question the little pilgrim. Do you ever think about your old home? She asked. Yes, said Christian. I often think about it. Have you sometimes wished to go back again? Once or twice when I had been very tired, but I am sure the celestial city is far better than ours, and I know I shall be happy when I get there. Why shall you be happy? Well, I shall see the prince, said little Christian. It was so wicked. It was so cruel for the wicked people to nail him to the cross. And I love him because he died for our sakes. And my mother is with the king. She went away when I was a baby, but I shall know her because I have seen her picture. Have you any little sisters? Asked Charity. No, but Christina used to play with me. She is kind and gentle. Why didn't you bother to bring her with you? Said Charity. Then you would have someone to talk to on your way. She did not believe what the stranger said, replied Christian, and she had her brother to take care of. They have no father or mother, and Christina has to do everything herself. Didn't you talk to her and beg her to come with you? I often told her about the city, but I might not have come myself if Evangelist had not shown me the way. And when I started at once, and then I started at once, so I didn't even say goodbye to Christina. Well, perhaps Evangelist will find her, and then she will come and bring her brothers with you. Just at that moment, a bell rang, and the two older girls folded up their work, saying, "This is to tell you that that supper is ready." Little Christian was hungry as well as tired, and he enjoyed the good food that was set before him. Then Discretion herself took him upstairs into a pleasant room with a window looking out towards the east. And there the weary little pilgrim slept soundly until he was awakened by the light of the rising sun. Chapter 17. A Happy Day. When morning came, little Christian supposed that he would have to continue his journey. But as soon as breakfast was over, he heard a gentle voice of Discretion desiring him to come to her. I think it will do you good to stay with us for a few days, she said. You have walked a long way since you left home. It is not well for a little pilgrim to travel too quickly at first. I should like to stay, said Christian, if I shall not be in the way. You will not be in the way at all. Taking care of little pilgrims is part of the work that my daughters have to do for the king, and we are always glad to have children staying at the palace. Did my mother stay here? Her name was Peace, and I think she must have come this way when the king sent her. It's a long time ago. I was quite a little baby when she went away. We will look in the records for her name. If she stayed with us, it will be written down. I think she was little, just a little bit like you, said Christian timidly. Discretion bent down and kissed the child, for she saw tears in his eyes. You will find her again, little Christian, she whispered. And do you know that she is often very near to you? You cannot see her, but she can see you. The king is very good, and he knows how mothers love their little ones. I shall see her in the king's city? Yes, and then you will never lose her again. And my father, said little Christian, will he always be busy, or do you think he will someday be able to come too? I cannot tell, replied Discretion. I am sure the king will not leave off sending messages to him. Perhaps when he knows that you and your mother are so happy, he will wish to be with you, and he will begin his pilgrimage. He will not be frightened on the way, said Christian, because he is a man and very brave. I think perhaps that even mother did not like passing the lions. When my father comes, will you tell him that I stayed here and that when he gets to the gates of the celestial city, he will be sure to see me watching for him? Yes, I will tell him, answered Discretion. Now, I have many things to do, so Charity shall take you into the library, and you may look in my records for your mother's name. Christian spent a very happy day at the palace. Sometimes Charity was with him, and other times Prudence, and sometimes Piety, but they were all very kind and gentle, and did everything they could to please their little guests. Christian, like many other boys, loved to read stories and look at pictures, and he found much to enjoy in the library of the palace beautiful. Prudence told him which books to read, and Piety showed him all the pictures. There were many pictures of children, like Moses lying in the cradle of rushes by the waterside, little Samuel lighting the lamps in the house of God, little Timothy listening to his mother's teaching, and there is our dear prince himself. You have read in your book how he came to live among us, and he was a little baby in a poor home. Here you see him in the arms of his mother. The shepherds are kneeling around him. Christian liked this picture and stood before it for some time until Charity called to him to look at one that was her favorite. It was called the Guardian Angel. A little child walking along a very narrow path, and close behind him came a beautiful angel with her hands spread out to touch his shoulders on either side. You see, we cannot fall, said Charity. The king has sent the angel, and if he slips, she will hold him fast. The time passed so quickly that little Pilgrim was surprised when evening came. Discretion had been busy all day, but before the lamps were lighted, she came into the library where Christian was reading. He laid down his book, and she drew him into her arms, and talked to him in a low, gentle tone, telling him many things about their good king and the prince, his son. I have never spent such a happy day in all my life, said Christian when he went to bed. If it were not that I wish so much to live in the king's city, I should like to stay here always. Chapter 18. Little Christian receives his armor. Little Christian spent 3 whole days at the Palace Beautiful. On the second day, discretion allowed him to see the armory. This was a very large room in which were stored all kinds of weapons for the use of the king's servants. Here Christian saw long rows of shining helmets, shields, and breastplates of the finest brass, glittering swords and shoes that Charity told him could never be worn out. And he noticed that these were not all intended for grown-up persons. There were helmets that were sure to fit, that he felt sure were too small even for him, and tiny swords that seemed only fit for children to play with. Are they toys, he asked. No, said Piety, they are for the little pilgrims. Then Christian could not help thinking how very much he would like to have a sword and a shield of his own and be one of the king's little soldiers. Piety sat down by one of the windows in the armory and told Christian about the wonderful things that some of the king's soldiers had done. The story he liked the best was that of a boy named David, who, when he was young, had fought a great giant and had been able to kill him. The giant was one of the king's enemies, said Piety, and he thought he could easily kill little David. He was covered with armor from head to foot, and David wore only a shepherd's dress and carried neither a sword nor a spear. What did he fight with? Asked Christian. He had a sling and a stone, and when he threw the stone at the giant, the king helped, and he aimed so well that he struck the giant on the forehead and killed him. This story comforted little Christian, for if the king had helped David, no doubt he would be ready to help any other little pilgrim who trusted in him. On the third day, Christian said to Prudence, Is it not time for me to go on my journey? Not yet. It is misty this morning, and you have not seen the view from the roof of the palace. So little Christian spent another happy day. In the morning, he opened the window, and he found that the mist had all passed away. As soon as breakfast was over, the 3 little girls took him up on the roof. It was flat, so the people could walk easily upon it and even sit there in the pleasant summer weather. Christian looked towards the south, and far away in the distance he could see a range of beautiful hills with broad green fields and vineyards and shady woods, and he could even see a stream sparkling in the sunlight as they flowed down into the quiet valleys. Oh, he exclaimed, what a lovely country that must be. Yes, said Piety, that is Emmanuel's land, and the way of the king passes through it. The hills are called Delectable Mountains, and from them you will be able to see the gates of the celestial city. Will it take me long to get there? Asked Christian. I don't know, answered Piety. You are a little pilgrim, and you cannot travel very fast. Just then they heard the voice of Discretion calling to them. We must let little Christian start in good time, she said, in order to reach the valley before the sun is hot. I am ready, began Christian, but Charity interrupted him. No, he is not ready, is he, Mother? We have something more to do for him, have we not? Yes, replied Discretion, and she led the way to the armory. Between the palace and the celestial city of the king's enemies are often very troublesome, and even little pilgrims need to carry weapons. Christian's cheeks glowed with pleasure when he found that he was ready to have a suit of armor of his very own, and Discretion and her daughter seemed pleased also. "I like to see you made me into a soldier," said Charity. "I like to see you made into a soldier," said Charity, and Christian wished that Christina could have been there too. "You you must take care of your armor," said Discretion, as she chose out a helmet of the right size. "It must always be kept bright and shining." Then Piety brought him a shield, which was just large enough to protect him and not too heavy for him to carry. Prudence fastened the sword at his side, and Charity fitted on his shoes. Then, when he was completely dressed, Discretion bent down and kissed him, as she had done before, saying, "May the blessing of the king go with you, my child, and may you continue as his faithful soldier and servant all the days of your life." Little Christian felt too happy to speak, so he just put his arm around Discretion as if she had been his own mother, and she well understood that his heart was full of love and gratitude. "You must thank the king," she said. "It is he who gives you all of these things." What a great place to stay. Little Christian got to stay in the Palace Beautiful and get some rest and receive these gifts so he can continue on in his journey, and he's ready to fight any battle that the evil one gives him, because the king, God, had given him all the tools and everything to fight these battles. What a good reminder for us. The king loves us, and he gives us tools to fight any battle that we encounter, any temptation, any trial in our life. I hope you'll join me next time as we'll continue on in our story. Have a great day.